other issues that are critical components of school funding. We will ask each of you a few questions and would appreciate a yes or no response, bearing in mind that at the end you will have 2 minutes for further response. Are you ready? We're going to go in alphabetical order by last name, starting with Mr. Noel Campbell. Representative Campbell, our first question is the following. In May, we will be asked to decide on Proposition 1, 2, 3, but the legislature is now moving forward with additional legislation to reduce public school funding. We ask you to hold education harmless, and by this we mean stop all cuts to education. Are you willing to hold education harmless in this legislative session?
Is this mic right here?
Yes, yes, speak loud, you're loud.
Good morning, kind of on the hot seat up here. But let me first of all say that I'm not an education expert. That was never my field. Those of you that know me know that I was in the military and in law enforcement. Border issues, those are things I really know something about. But that does not mean I'm not educatable. And I have been educated by Joe and his folks from the Prescott Unified School District. And because they spent time with me and got me to see the value of the override bond issue, I not only supported it, I wrote an article.
May I please, excuse me for interrupting, may I please hold you to a yes or no
Oh,
answer, please?
well, I could, let me just say this, I probably could say no, because I do support empowerment scholarships, and that in a sense would cause some funding losses, but that doesn't mean I'm an enemy of public education at all. I just think that if a parent is involved in a child's education and they want to take that child and put him in a school of their choice, that's a win for our society. So I have to be honest with you, that will take some money away, but that doesn't mean we can't put more money into public education.
I'm told we're supposed to switch mics, so you stand there.
Okay.
And I'll say no. Okay, because I have more questions.
Okay.
Are you willing to oppose bills that eliminate desegregation funds?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know enough about that particular issue. It doesn't affect the school district up here, so I'll have to learn about that. So
Okay.
I can't answer your question because I really don't know that issue in detail.
Okay. Well, you just talked about ESAs. Are you willing to eliminate the provision that requires current year funding for district public schools?
Yeah, I'm going to work on that, just like I worked on the JTEDS issue. I mean, and I want to tell you, with this kind of support, if we could get this in every school district, you'd see a lot of your questions and your desires accomplished, because that's what it takes. It takes the pressure from the citizens that really want these issues to happen to come forward, and so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Allow me, and I don't mean to change your program, but in all fairness, I would like to have a couple comments with respect to the slides before we actually answer questions. Because there was a couple of things that were kind of omitted from the slides, and so for this conversation to go on, I think everybody kind of needs to know that. So what I wanted to say first of all is, I know that all three of us support education heavily, and we can get into the specific questions. But I would like to expound on just particularly one major thing that was going on there. I'm not an expert in education either, so I've tried to ask a lot of questions. Thank God for Joe and Kevin and everybody and Tim that helps me with this, and I still don't know it. One thing I did understand, because when we talked about this Prop 123, and we talked about, and all the newspaper articles about how, the state, withheld money, took all this, I want to make sure that you understand a piece of that very quickly. In 2000, when the voters voted for that, the inflation funding was going along just fine. In 6, 7, and 8, that's when the boom was going on. Construction was going crazy. People were buying, people were shopping. We had a lot of extra money. And Janet Napolitano was our governor at that time, and she invested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of $1 million more in our education system in 6, 7, and 8. So what happened was the funding went like this, and then it went like this, and then starting in 9, that's when the recession started hitting and the balloon bust, and it dropped off like this. When it dropped off, and this was before our time, my time, I think you were a freshman, it dropped off, and when it did, the state actually did go back to funding had this been a normal playing field. So I just want to let you know that this whole deal, I am so glad about 1, 2, 3, but please remember, a lot of this lawsuit was because now we had a lot of people saying, oh no, the new base is up here instead of down here. Well, there's no way Arizona could sustain an inflation amount on a base that was hundreds of $millions higher, compounded after that. So that was an important piece that the general public does not ever get told. Okay, so let's go with questions. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
Everyone can take their 2 minutes where they want.
Okay. I mean, we have to correct some of them, add more
No,
information.
absolutely, thank you.
Okay.
We ask you to hold education harmless, and by this we mean stop all cuts to education. Are you willing to hold education harmless in this legislative session?
And that is not a yes or no answer because it depends on what education you're talking about. If we have to take funding from over here, if that's the bottom line, to produce funding for, say, our current year funding, we're gonna have to look at the big picture. Because if for everything that everybody's asked, we are talking hundreds of millions more dollars that I know the state doesn't have to fulfill all of their asks.
Are you willing to oppose bills that eliminate desegregation funds?
I do not know about that. I am not familiar. It is a Senate bill. We were talking about it in the other room. I am learning about that.
Are you willing to oppose any expansion of the empowerment scholarship accounts or vouchers?
No. I believe in education for all students regardless of whether it's public, private, or charter.
Are you willing to eliminate the provision that requires current year funding for district public schools?
Absolutely. My number one goal this year.
Thank you. When would you like to take your 2 minutes?
I'll take 10 in a few minutes.
Mr. Steve Pierce, we ask you to hold education harmless, and by this we mean stop all cuts to education. Are you willing to hold education harmless this legislative session?
I agree with Karen. I'd have to say no, because you act like the budget's been passed and that this is the legislature doing it. And everything you've heard is the governor's budget. It's not ours. We haven't gotten there yet. But I can't say I'm willing to hold you harmless. I've done everything I can to help education. But if you want yes or no, I'll say no.
And we thank you for your help us. Are you willing to oppose bills that eliminate desegregation funds?
No, because I'll just leave it at no.
Okay, thank you. Are you willing to oppose any expansion of the empowerment scholarship accounts or vouchers?
No.
Are you willing to eliminate the provision that requires current year funding for district public schools?
No.
Okay, you have 2 minutes to explain all those no's.
There is so much in these slides that I'm sorry that I can't remember it all. I have notes, but they're random. If I can remember your questions. ESAs. I believe right now it's less than 0.5% that's getting those. And it's not going to grow. It's growing very slow. I think it's been challenged. They've been challenged. The court said they're legal. I think parents deserve choice of whatever school they want to go to, and if they have a child that isn't working out in a public school situation and they want to take them someplace else, they can. And it's not, there's misinformation out there about ESAs, but I won't waste my 2 minutes on it. And,
DSEG.
DSEG actually doesn't hurt Yavapai County, doesn't hurt Prescott. DSEG causes school districts like Phoenix Union and Tucson to be able to tax their people a different tax that's given to them by the OCR, Office of Civil Rights, and they can use that money. That we don't get that money. Somebody has complained. There are people that have manipulated this so they have more money, therefore they can pay their teachers a lot more money. Their starting pay at Phoenix Union is $10,000 more than we have up here. So I don't think it's fair to Yavapai County, to Prescott in particular. Next question was?
Current year funding.
Current year funding. The way I understand current year funding is Prescott Unified is funded just like the slide said, based on what's there this year. What about the kids that changed this fall and they're going to basis. The school, the state's paying for the kid at basis and at Prescott, so he's paying 2 times. I understand exactly what you're saying, and that it shouldn't be that it's all in 1 year. I think it has to be put in there over a period of time. I think there are people working on the governor to back off on that and say, let's put this in over a period of time so people can adjust to it. And I think my colleagues agree with that. But right now, we're wasting money paying for the same kid twice. And by the way, I hear a lot about how bad basis has hurt everybody up here, but I saw Craig Barrett's name up there 3 or 4 times like he's a guru in education. Well, guess who started basis?
Our next questions concern the budget process. Last year's budget was moved very quickly. Few legislators and fewer citizens had a chance to read it, much less understand it. After the budget process last year, Ms. Fan, you met with a group of us and shared that the process was top-down mandate to pass the budget. Our first question is to you, Mr. Fan. Are you willing to stand strong and make sure the budget process reflects the interests and concerns of your constituents so that our voices are heard?
Yes.
Are you willing to advocate that the budget process takes the time required to understand the contents?
Yes.
Are you willing to make especially sure that the budget deals with budget numbers only and does not attempt to change policy?
No.
Did you want 2 minutes?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, the budget process stinks, to say the least. Can I say that? I'm a business owner, I've never seen budgets done this way, but last year was horrific. It was just absolutely the worst, and Noel will have his 2 cents worth on that one. It was dropped, it was shoved, and this is not necessarily all on the governor. We had new leadership, we had a new speaker in the House, and so the process was, close that a second, just only because of the motorcycles. So the process was shortchanged. That is not happening this year. We all went to them immediately and said, this isn't going to happen. We absolutely need to have some say in this. Your next question were yeses, but one of the things you asked was, and the other thing I want to tell you about the budget too, the current year funding issue, that was not a Ducey thing. That was not in his budget. That was put in, or so I've been told by JLBC, that was put in a budget burb by the appropriations chair in the House. That means that they slipped a little line in the budget at the last minute and stuck it in there. So that's why it came to a big surprise to everybody. The other thing I wanted to say is, you said, are you willing to especially make sure that the budget deals with budget numbers only and does not attempt to change policy? That's an unrealistic question, because policy goes with budget numbers. So as you're trying to balance the budget, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad policy change, it could be a good policy change. What if the policy changes is we're not going to do empowerment scholarships anymore? You guys would probably like that, right? So that's a policy change. So my answer is no on that one, because there can be good policy change to make the budget better for all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce, last year you voted with your feet as a non-supportive vote. Are you willing to stand strong and make sure that the budget process reflects the interests and concerns of your constituents so that our voices are heard?
Yes.
Are you willing to advocate that the budget process take the time required to understand the context?
Yes.
Are you willing to make especially sure that the budget deals with the budget numbers only and does not attempt to change policy?
Yes.
Did you want 2 minutes?
Yes. Last year, on a Tuesday evening, I was in an FBI course, and when I left, the governor called and said, hey, I need you to come and help me. The budget's out today. We're going to get it through by Thursday. And I said, I haven't even seen it, and you're asking me to do this. Well, if you'll help me, we can do it. And I said, well, I'll come see you in the morning. I went and saw him. He asked me 4 times if I would help him, we'd get it through real quick. And I said, I haven't seen it. I don't know enough about it. I'm not going to do that. And on the 4th time, he gathered up his papers, walked over to the door and opened the door and said, thanks. And I went home. And it's wrong to do it that way. It used to be the Appropriations Committee would meet every Friday, and they had subcommittees, and people like you could come in and testify and do things, and it was built with public knowledge of everything. I have told the governor, and I've told Andy Biggs, the president of the Senate, it's wrong, we need to go back to what it was. And Andy says, I agree with you, but we lose control of it that way. And Andy even told my wife, when she was talking to him once, well, we can't let it go out over the weekend, people will change their minds. So, you know, it's going to be the same because they have control of it this way. And it will be the same. It wouldn't surprise me with what we go down there even this week or next week, and they come in and say, we're putting the budget out and we're going to do it by Thursday. It's insane to do it that way. When I was president of the Senate, I didn't believe in doing anything late at night. You can't think. You just get tired, and they wear you down. They wear you down, so you say, to hell with it, I'm going to vote yes and get out of here. And that's how it works. But it's wrong. The governor's wrong to promote that. And let me say one thing here while I can. All of you, if you don't like the way we're doing a job, you have a vote. If you don't like the way the legislature's doing it, run for office. And every time somebody complains to me, I say, hey, you'd be good. You'd be good running for office. Would you do it?
Maybe. Yeah.
There you go. That even candidates to run. It's very hard. You're fortunate to have us because you could have people like the East Valley that's negative on everything, and they're a no. And Mesa, I could go into lots of stories, but I won't. I think I used my 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Mr. Campbell. Are you willing to stand strong and make sure the budget process reflects the interests and concerns of your constituents so our voices are heard?
Yes.
Are you willing to advocate that the budget process take the time required to understand the content?
Yes.
Are you willing to make especially sure that the budget deals with budget numbers only and does not attempt to change policy?
That's a no, and I defer to Representative Fan on that answer. So I'll take 2 minutes and kind of, last year, that was my first year down there. I'm in my second year, I'm still a freshman. And it was brutal. And they pretty much put so much pressure on us and beat us down. And I understand the reason for it. There was a good reason to do it that way. The new governor, he wanted to have a structurally balanced budget. He wanted to control it. It was like taking a foul-tasting medicine that you hate taking, but it was good for you. We got to the structural budget. Now we have approximately $650 million in excess funding, and we have $450 million in the rainy day fund. So we have some extra money in there, and I think it's going to be used for very good purposes. So I'm gonna resist as much pressure as I can down there, and I know Karen feels the same way. There's probably 10 or 12 of us who are not going to go along with that program of having it forced down our throats. And if that means I don't get elected or whatever, that's it. I didn't come into this office to make a career out of it. I'm way too old to do that anyway. So I'm going to do the very best thing I can do for you. I would like to just say that I think that quickly Prop 123 is a very good agreement in the sense that nobody's totally happy with it, but the education side came forward. We're going to be able to put more money quickly into education, which we need. We got rid of this lawsuit that would have bankrupted the state of Arizona. That's absolutely true, and Karen was right on that when she talked about the higher level. So the only people that did not support that were the Democrat legislators in our House, but all of their allies supported it, school associations, etc. So it was a very good bill, and we're glad we took action on it. And you saw what you can do on JTEDS. If you want to have input to what we do, do this. This is this is a very powerful group. You don't know how much power you really have. And I know that Joe and other people can straight pipe right into me. I always return their calls when they call me. Educate me. I represent you. You represent a special interest here in public education. There are many interests in this district, believe me. But it's a powerful group. And you will get people's attention if you continue to organize and do what you do. Thank you.
It might be. I don't know.
magnetic.
Yeah.
We have a follow-up question, Ms. Pham.
Okay,
Regarding policy change in the budget, wouldn't a policy change be a separate bill? How is that actually done by the
No,
budget?
it's actually a lot of times part of the budget. I told you about the budget burr that the appropriations chairs put in that said, oh, we're gonna take, do this current year funding thing. That was in the budget. That was slipped in unbeknownst to anybody in the last weaning hours.
Thank you. We look forward to working with all three of you on these issues that are important to us. Our state is still at the bottom of funding for students. Our concerns regarding desegregation, ESAs, current year funding. Are you three willing to continue the dialogue with us either when we go down to the Capitol or when you're in town? Mr. Pierce?
Sure.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to have us bring some people, you gave one side to everything here, and you gave the negatives, and we're not all negative, There's another side to this, and there are some good things going on, and I'd be happy, and I know the three of us would, to have something just like this and bring people up here to get more in depth with them. You're not gonna get the governor up here, which, by the way, Prop 123, there's one person that's a standout that's opposed to it.
Do it.
Who is it, Joe?
Do it.
And he's coming up here to the Citizens Tax Committee, and he's gonna tell all the bad things about it. I'm a member of the Citizens Tax Committee, but this one kind of pissed me off because the guy said, I'll come up and I'll tell you all this, but I'm not gonna let anybody from the other side on the stage with me. If they're there, I'm leaving unless it's the governor. The only person I'll let on the stage with me is the governor. And that isn't right. That's just wrong to be like that. But I do believe you need to have the big picture. I love seeing public interest. It's important. You do make a difference. Your emails, you saw what we did with the JTEDs, and it was the governor that had his mind changed. So you guys do have some clout, and if you want to do this again, we can get some more people up here that'll go more into depth with you and help you on this. And it should be soon, because the budget, I know, is going to get pushed real soon. It was 7 weeks last year, and I don't know what week we're into, but we're getting close to that right now. So, which, by the way, when they did that last year, I told them I was a no, and they had to buy a Democrat to get the one vote they needed. So, if two of us had left, they'd go buy another Democrat. So,
They got
that's
a
how
real
it
nice
works.
road though.
Sorry.
That's okay. Ms. Bates, will you continue the dialogue with us?
Oh, absolutely, and I do want to just say that I'm fortunate that I grew up here, so I know many of the people here in the room. We grew up together, didn't we? So, yeah, absolutely. You guys have been down to my office. You know where to find me up here. For those of you that do not live in District 1, and that you live in Ever districts, you may already be doing it, but if you aren't, I strongly suggest you talk to these folks here about the outreach that they have particularly started over these last couple of years. I cannot tell you how many other legislators I know that do not know any of their school board members. They don't know their mayors, their council people. They are working in a
Bubble.
box, yeah. So if these guys have done an amazing job with making sure that, and I always say, make it personal. They know how to say, Karen, let's go have coffee, we need to talk. That's how we got the bond and override passed this year, I think. It really, Joe, you guys did an amazing job, Joanne. So if you're in a different area, I strongly suggest make it personal with your legislators. Make them understand how important this is. But be polite, be respectful, and just explain your point as to why this is important to you. Thanks.
I absolutely think that these meetings are critical, and I would probably like to see one every 3 months, every quarter, just to, hear the feedback. But the truth of it is that the leadership here has access to me. They know they can call me, stop in, I respond. And even though I'm not an expert in education, and there are times that I won't agree in your positions, I am not an enemy of public education. I support it. And I know the problems, the special problems with the special needs students and how much they use up of your budget. And I'm aware of all of that. And 85% of the kids in this state are going to public education. So I'm very proud that I was able to work on Prop 123, attend all the meetings. You know, I think it's a good first start. I think the governor is pro-education, and he understands the quality education for every dollar we stick into it, and also at the university level. We have President Crow comes down to us all the time. The president of Arizona State University comes in and talks to us about how higher education needs money. So the more we have an educated populace, the more return we're going to get with an economic benefit. Governor Ducey understands that. You folks can put a lot of input to Governor Ducey and his staff. He's really on our side, but you have to understand, we operate in a kind of an austere budget process, and the economy's going to continue to do better. We're going to have a little extra money to keep on doing the things that we want to do, and I support that. And if any of you, after this, I have my business cards, and I make a promise to any of you, if you email me and you put a phone number, I will call you back. We get hundreds of form emails every day. I mean, you can't read them all, there's so many, but we can tell a handwritten email. And if you have an issue and it's important and you have a phone number, I'll try my very best to call you back. It may not be that day, maybe a week later, because we have so many of them. But I think you guys know that I'm trying to do the best job I can do for you. And I agree with Steve. We need candidates to step up. This is not easy doing this. Having to live down there in Phoenix back and forth, it's a hardship. And I do it gladly because I'm a retired person, and this is basically my community service for you. So with that, I thank you for having me.